The owner of rank F not only received level 0, he is also the weakest of all. By chance, having got into a dungeon, he discovers that he can get imbalanced skills just by thinking about it. In addition to strange dungeons and bosses, other difficulties arise on his way. Girls, or maybe even old men, are interested in him? Let's find out. Before the total destruction of humanity prepared by the gods, they decided to give them a chance, a test. Suddenly, dungeons began to appear all over the world. If they do not achieve a certain result in them, then all of humanity will be destroyed. One sunny day, the protagonist named Hinata was called by Kai-kun. He asked MC what he thought about the fact that he had already become a seeker. The protagonist noted that this was incredible. Kai noted that Hinata himself had also worked hard, although, for a level 0 like him, this was impossible. These words touched the protagonist, and he thought that since the dungeons opened on Earth, the concept of levels was born. That is why a society has grown in the world where the strong bully the weak, and Hinata himself is the weakest. After some time, at school, Kai approached the protagonist and began to bully him. He turned to MC and pointed out that he was level 0, and his potential was also F rank. Being the weakest in this world, how was he going to clear dungeons? The protagonist pointed out that although his level was not high, it might be different in the future. But Kai did not like these words and clenched his fist. After that, MC thought Kai was not the first to say such things. It was just because he was level 0, people around him had ridiculed and mocked him all his life. In order to avoid this, he left his hometown and entered Seishin High School. However, why did Kai enter here? Because of him, everyone quickly found out that the protagonist was level 0. Suddenly, MC noticed an airship in the sky, from which a voice came, determining today's Explorer ranking. The protagonist thought the ranking is determined based on the achievements earned in the dungeons. The top 100 chosen ones are heroes for everyone. However, in the dungeons, there are a lot of different monsters and dangers, but MC's thoughts were interrupted by someone's shout that Hinata herself was walking nearby. This is the strongest student, Hinata-sama, who has the potential of the 5th rank. In addition, she is the daughter of the leader of the Kamui clan. Another guy asked if he talked to her. Would she agree to go together? Later, at school, the protagonist was sitting behind Hinata. The teacher asked her to introduce herself, but the protagonist at that moment thought, he got the seat behind her, and he got goosebumps from these looks. Hinata humbly stood up and introduced herself. Everyone was surprised. Is that all she wants to say? The teacher asked the next one to introduce himself. The protagonist jumped up and also introduced himself. He added that he entered from Kirin Middle School and has not yet decided on a club. He has the same names as this rank 5 girl. If they could become friends, he would be very happy. After a while, MC came to the dorm and noticed that it is not small. Suddenly, a girl called out to him and asked if he was Suzuki Hinata. The protagonist replied that it was true. The girl noted that she was pleased to meet him. Her name is Kiyono. She is the manager of the dormitory. She gave the protagonist a set of rules and told him to make sure he remembered them. MC replied that he would remember them and began reading. At this time, Kiyono was already addressing the others. The protagonist followed the instructions when he suddenly remembered that there was supposed to be a meeting of the dorm residents today. Later in the cafeteria, a girl suggested that the other residents create a joint group together, since they have the same ranks. She turned to the protagonist and asked him to introduce himself. MC stiffened and muttered his name, as well as his rank of F. The girl exclaimed, "Is he really an F rank?" The guy sitting next to him explained that she was so surprised because she did not think that a non-adventurer could live in this dorm. The girl apologized and then pointed out that Seishin High School prioritizes adventurers. MC thought that he himself did not understand how he was able to enter here. Suddenly, the girl asked if he was wearing gloves to hide his level, or what. As we know, rank indicates potential. Nowadays, humanity sets a person's potential at birth. The maximum is S rank, and the minimum is F rank. The girl continued that just because he is of a low rank does not mean that he cannot succeed. MC was surprised and loudly asked what she meant. The girl explained that having low potential does not always mean being weak. Even A-rank adventurers can get stuck in their development, but S-rank is an exception, of course. In other words, potential is potential. To become strong, level is important. After hearing this, the protagonist thought about it. The girl exclaimed, "So if he works hard, he will definitely succeed." The guy next to him noted that she was right. As long as the protagonist keeps raising his level, he definitely has a chance. But the girl also added, gritting her teeth, that she had never heard of a successful F-rank adventurer. MC thought, of course he knew that it would be incredibly difficult for him to become an adventurer, while the other kids had higher levels. After a while, he was thinking at home. He was an F-rank and level 0, although usually people start at level 1. Suddenly, a message came to the protagonist's phone. It was his sister, who asked how he was doing at the new school. She would also work hard to enter Seishin High School next year. But MC covered his face with his hand and winced. He had asked her not to text him for a while. He thought one of the reasons why he entered Seishin High School was to arrange a comfortable life for his mother and sister. He thought that by becoming an adventurer, he would be able to earn a lot, but with such success, he probably won't be able to. But suddenly the protagonist jumped out of bed and exclaimed he can't give up. He understands that he definitely can't show such a face to his sister. So what if he's level 0? Maybe if he defeats the monster in the dungeon, he'll level up? Before giving up, he should at least try. He can't give up so easily. After a while, MC had already arrived at the E117 dungeon. Before that, he asked the door manager Kinoyo what kind of dungeon there was for beginners. But after she explained everything, he added that the most important thing for a seeker is their life. He'd better not overexert himself, but do what he can do himself and come back. The protagonist smiled at her and then went to the reception. He asked if anyone was there. The girl hurriedly stood from behind the counter and accidentally hit her head. She greeted the protagonist and asked if this was his first time. Right? She explained that this was the Seishin High School uniform. She would give him his license now. MC remarked that he was counting on her. He asked where the box was. The girl began to rush about. Where did she put it? She asked to wait a minute and went to look for the box. The protagonist remarked that she was completely careless. He noticed a ball on the table and thought, this crystal is used to evaluate potential. The color means your rank. He smiled, touched the crystal and offered him to look at it after so much time. He touched it and remembered, potential has color, so rank A is rank A. If the color is black, it means that there is no color. In other words, no abilities. This is called level 0. It was as if he was swallowed by darkness. But why did this happen to him? At this time, the girl had already returned and was very surprised. Where did he disappear? Maybe he went home. But the protagonist seemed to be sucked into the darkness. He was confused. Why was he pitching? Was he going to go to hell right now? When he landed, he asked himself, was he still pitching? But it seemed like he was already standing up. He noticed that it was so dark that he couldn't see anything. Where was he? Suddenly, a strange voice was heard, which reported that, due to the difficulties, MC had acquired the skill Dungeon Information. The skill had just been activated. In addition, Lucifer's Fall had also been analyzed. The protagonist wondered, was he already inside the dungeon? What did all this mean? The voice continued, due to the difficulties, he had acquired the skill Surveillance of the surrounding area. But MC couldn't believe what kind of voice was that. Suddenly, MC fell to the ground in pain. The voice added that he had also acquired the skill Resistance to Foreign Objects and Resistance to Abnormal States. After that, MC's resistance to abnormal conditions evolved to the average level. At this time, the protagonist was writhing in terrible pain and calling for help from anyone. The voice continued, later, thanks to many evolutions of resistance to abnormal conditions, the protagonist achieved immunity to abnormal conditions. Suddenly, the protagonist found himself in his room and asked, was it really a dream? He noted that this made the situation easier because he heard that if you pass out in the dungeon, it is certain death. But MC is still in the dungeon and sighing, he noted that he expected this. He got up and rubbed his head. How long had he been unconscious? And what was that voice? But he had only heard about skills in games. Suddenly the voice rang out again and said that now, thanks to difficulties, he has the skill list. The protagonist saw the system window in front of him and noted, he doesn't quite understand, but will he really get skills automatically if something happens? But right now he doesn't know how safe this place is. It's best to slowly move forward until he finds an exit. MC noted to himself, the skill Surveillance of the surrounding area is very useful. It feels weird, like he's looking at the camera in the corner of the screen for the second time. He also noted that the air contains extreme amounts of toxic substances and extreme amounts of paralyzing substances. MC noted he doesn't even want to think about what would happen to him if he didn't have absolute immunity. In any case, it's still so dark here, he can still see the stars and the castle in the distance. Suddenly, a voice said that the skill Night Vision is now available. The protagonist was very happy about this. Everything is so clear now. Come to think of it, he's read a lot that there are many different traps in the dungeons. He shouldn't worry if it's an F-rank dungeon, but he should be careful. Suddenly, the protagonist saw a pond and was happy about it. He noted that this was great happiness. Even with hunger resistance, he still felt thirsty. MC scooped up the water in his hands and noted that due to his night vision, the water had a strange color. After drinking this water, MC coughed and noted with disgust that it tasted terrible. Suddenly, a voice reported that the recovery of vitality had evolved to the level of high. MC rushed about. Is there really danger nearby? He noticed that the reconnaissance of the surrounding area was silent. The protagonist decided to check something. He took the water in his hands and splashed it on a stone. This water is poisonous. MC noted that absolute immunity saved him again. He completely underestimated the dungeon. He definitely should be more careful. The protagonist went further, and after a while, noticed that he had been walking for a long time. Where was the exit? By the way, how did he even get into the dungeon? He doesn't have a seeker's license. Suddenly, the protagonist heard something and asked what it could be. Was there really someone nearby? Maybe it was a monster. That's right. MC saw a huge beast. He asked in confusion. This must be a joke. Shouldn't weak monsters appear first? Could this be the floor with the dungeon boss, or one of those powerful non-standard monsters? But it doesn't matter now. First, he needs to hide and wait for him to leave. But at that moment, the beast noticed the protagonist, and went in a furious pursuit of him. The protagonist, while running, thought that this was very bad. He urgently needed to get out of here. Meanwhile, the voice said that due to the danger, the protagonist acquired the skill Speed Increase. Due to the danger, Speed Increase evolved to the average level. Then MC started running even faster. He climbed a stone wall and started running along it, but immediately discovered that the beast could do the same. The voice noted that the speed increase evolved to a high level, and later to the maximum. Soon the speed increase turned into hyperspeed. The protagonist noted that he was able to escape and found himself in the forest, no matter what his speed was in this place, but before he could finish, the monster was already standing in front of him. MC noted that it seemed like he would have to fight, but what could he do? He definitely couldn't die here. If he fought him, he might get even more skills. He definitely could, he had a chance, but when he rushed to attack, he immediately backed down and noted that it was completely impossible. After that, the monster made a huge jump and began to attack the protagonist. MC noted that he had been running for so long that he had no strength left. The voice reported that due to the danger, he acquired the skill of Stamina Increase. The protagonist noted that this was very good. With this, he might be able to escape, but why didn't the monster attack? Was he tired? Suddenly, the protagonist noticed a lake of dangerous poison behind him. He scooped up some water and noted that maybe this would help. After that, he splashed the liquid on the monster and advised him to take a bath. He was sure that it was afraid of this poisonous water. With the help of the poisonous liquid, the protagonist quickly put the monster down and said that the notes of novice adventurers said that one should be careful with the idea of defeating monsters. After he finished off the beast, he noted that in order to pass the dungeon, he would probably need a couple of bones from this monster. The voice let him know that the protagonist had acquired the skill Monster Disassembly for a good idea. MC was surprised and noted that Monster Disassembly is an active skill. Active skills are those that you need to use yourself, and passive ones are those that always work depending on the situation. It is important to use them correctly. Well then, it's time to use Monster Disassembly. In a few seconds, the protagonist succeeded. He exclaimed, an incredible amount of materials came out here, such as bones, leather, and magic stone. He heard that in E-rank dungeons, magic stones range from 10 to 30 centimeters, but it doesn't matter, they are used to generate energy and create weapons. It will probably sell for a good price. The protagonist wondered what he should do with these materials now. How can he carry it all? If only he had a magic backpack, it would be nice. Something that could help him carry everything at once. I wonder if there is such a skill? He said to the air. He wanted to have such a skill, and he was already disappointed, but the voice said, he acquired the skill Subspace for a good idea. The protagonist was happy and noted, all his things were displayed in a list and he could take anything he wanted just by thinking and put it back. It was also very useful. And he can't put poisonous water, he can't store dungeon items, or he can't store liquid. But there's no point in thinking about it anymore. He needs to move forward. Even though he somehow defeated that huge monster, 0 multiplied by any number is still 0, his level is still 0. Moving on, the protagonist finds himself in a cave. He notices that the monsters now look like rabbits. He thinks he can get past them, but no such luck. He steps on a branch and it crunches. He exclaims, what are those branches doing here? The voice says that due to the difficulty, the skill Trap Detection has been acquired. Also due to the difficulty, the skill Trap Deactivation has been acquired. MC exclaims, is that a trap? The rabbits start attacking the protagonist. He says, comparing them, they are much slower than that monster. Is it because of the skill Agility Increase, or how their movement and attacks seem to be in slow motion? Suddenly, he noticed one of the rabbits had an opening. The protagonist, without wasting time, made an attack and punched it. But after the attack, he wondered if the increase in agility was not enough. Then let him try it and threw a few more punches. A voice sounded. The skill Arm Strengthening was obtained due to practice. MC noted, he was waiting for this. He can really get a skill through practice. The voice continued, Arm Strengthening evolved into martial arts due to practice. Also, his martial arts continue to evolve. Later, The skill Emergency Dodge, Pressure Resistance, and Fear Resistance were obtained. The protagonist noticed that due to the new skills, he does not feel constrained or scared, his body moves on its own. But even though his level is not increasing, he is glad that he can gain skills. If he does not grow, he will only become a burden to his team in a difficult dungeon. And to avoid this, he must gain even more skills. He kept repeating the words to himself. If he works hard, he will be rewarded. He will make these words come true. After a successful battle, the protagonist noticed that he had meat, bones, skin, and magic stones. He had collected enough. These magic stones were much larger than those written about in the book. They must be different. First, he just needed to survive. He would simply collect magic stones and materials until he left this place. The protagonist continued on his way and suddenly saw some light. Was this really the exit? At that moment, he remembered a lot. His first dungeon, his first defeated monster, and perhaps this was his first exit. Yes, suddenly, he found himself at that very reception in front of that very girl. She asked in shock if he was okay. She asked if he could at least make some noise before approaching the reception. He scared her terribly. The protagonist apologized for that. The girl noticed. He's the student from yesterday, right? The protagonist asked why yesterday. The girl explained, he came yesterday. The MC thought, has it really been a whole day? He was unconscious in that place for a whole day. He said, it's good that he survived. The girl asked him what he would do. He doesn't have a license. It is accepted in many places. Will he do it? The protagonist asked her a little nervously to do it. The girl exclaimed, let him put his hand on the box then. He did it, and the girl exclaimed in bewilderment, is it really a black fog? The protagonist explained that this was his birthright. He was level 0. The girl screamed so loudly that people outside heard her. She asked him to forgive her reaction. The protagonist remarked that everything was fine and that she should not worry. MC thought that he knew that he would be able to fight in an E-rank dungeon. Even if he could not kill strong monsters, he could still defeat more weak ones and sell their magic stones for money. This would help his mother, and he would be able to please his sister with all sorts of things. The girl congratulated him and remarked that from now on, he was officially registered as a seeker. The protagonist, putting on the glove, thanked her. After a while, an airship flying by reported an incredible change in the ranking. The first place was taken by a new seeker, but for some reason the name is unknown. The new first place seeker point count was incredible. The protagonist heard this and remarked, first place is cool. One day, he will get into this top. He chuckled and added right after he gets his life together. As it turned out, due to the sudden appearance of an unknown adventurer that day, the world changed dramatically, but no one knew about it. Not even the unknown adventurer himself. Now the legend starts from scratch. Until now, Hinata Suzuki, who was an F rank and a level 0, the weakest in the entire world, managed to clear the beginner dungeon E1117. He successfully debuted as an explorer. Now he wants to exchange the obtained items for money. A little while later, at the shopping mall, the protagonist tried to exchange the obtained items for money, but the machine showed that the X-rank magic stone could not be appraised. The protagonist was surprised. Why is that? What do they mean by impossible to appraise? Could he really not sell them? The machine gave out a text saying if the appraisal is impossible, please let him contact their appraiser at the consultation center. In the end, the protagonist was unable to exchange each of the obtained items for money. He assumed that maybe the machine was broken, but he had nothing left except for small magic stones. But when he put the stone up for appraisal, it turned out to be worth a lot. It was a special magic stone. The protagonist was very surprised. He couldn't believe that an ordinary magic stone made from rabbits could be worth so much. He still had a couple. However, if a simple high school student suddenly got that much money, there might be questions. First, he would sell one. The machine said the transaction was confirmed. Walking down the street, the protagonist noticed that for some reason he felt tired. Suddenly, on the way to the dorm, he met Kiyono Seina. She said welcome. The protagonist greeted her and apologized. He went to the dungeon yesterday and did not return on time. Seina was surprised. He went to the dungeon right after entering high school. She asked him not to overdo it. His life should come first. The protagonist asked in surprise, does she believe him? Seina remarked, of course she believed him. Who wouldn't believe him when his clothes were in such a state? The protagonist said that he didn't even notice. Seina remarked that he should remember to wash them. After that, she addressed him as a Suzuki seeker and congratulated him on his first successful raid. The protagonist lit up, bowed, and thanked her loudly. He thought, he really became a seeker. He entered the dorm and thought Mrs. Seina was a bit cold, but she had such a beautiful smile. The guy saw him and remarked that it was amazing. Was it his first time back from a dungeon? Everyone came back dirty. He introduced himself as Fuji Hiroto and said that it was nice to meet him. The protagonist also said his name. Fuji asked what dungeon he had been through. The protagonist explained that it was an E-rank dungeon, E117. Fuji remarked that it was amazing. In the first place, everyone went to a D-rank dungeon. The protagonist said that for some reason, he was pulled into the dungeon, but fortunately, he managed to come back safe and sound. Fuji noticed that it must have been difficult, but suddenly he cried out, "Did he really go there alone? Even if it was an E-rank dungeon, you should go in a group the first time." The protagonist remarked that he was right, he would do that next time. He noted that if he wanted, he could call him. Even though he was not very strong, he could definitely help in an E-rank dungeon. The protagonist noted to himself that Fuji was good, and thanked him. He thought that one day he too will become useful. After a while sitting in class, the protagonist sighed tiredly. Suddenly Kai came up to him. The protagonist greeted him. Kai asked him to step aside with a few words. They went out to the roof and the protagonist thought, Kai is his classmate from middle school. He always looked at him with disdain. To him, Kai is a symbol of terror. Only because of his resistance to fear and pressure, he doesn't feel anything like that now, and even though he is level 0, if he presses him, he will definitely be able to fight back. Kai said his name, smiled and shouted that it's time to start. He rushed at the protagonist with his fists, but MC thought, was he always this slow? The protagonist came back with ease from his punch. Kai asked in confusion, what the hell? When Kai started another attack, the protagonist thought, in middle school, he used this punch to scare him, but the rabbit monsters from the dungeon were much more dangerous. When he came back, he thought he could strike now, but suddenly a voice was heard. The protagonist had obtained the skill, Cold Resistance, due to high exposure. Suddenly, Kamui came and shouted at them to stop. Kai yelled that it was none of her business, but Kamui stopped him anyway. Kai pushed the protagonist and remarked that he would remember this. The protagonist thought he had never seen Kai like this. After all, he was in the top 10 in the entire school. MC turned to Kamui and thanked her. She did not answer, and the protagonist wondered if he should probably apologize. However, he remembered his sister's words about a woman's heart being a complicated thing. Now he understood what she meant, but before the protagonist could say anything, he was attacked. The voice explained that he had obtained the skill Freeze Resistance due to high exposure. The protagonist noted that it was incredibly cold here. If it weren't for her skills, he would have frozen to death by now because of her attack. But why did Kamui even intervene? He thought he didn't want to test his skills to the limit, so he urgently needed to do something. He screamed that he didn't know why she attacked him, but he didn't want to freeze to death. He rushed at her, saying that it was self-defense, but after that, Kamui cried and apologized to him, falling to her knees. She apologized and explained that she was too scared and couldn't bear it. She really sincerely apologized. She thought, Hinata is completely unusual. Although he is called a level 0, in reality he has incredible strength, but no one notices it. No one. Not even the teachers. When Kai called him for a few words, she doubted why this was happening. How could he provoke such a monster? He will kill Kai with one blow. Out of fear, she activated her S-rank ability, Ice God's Blessing. It constantly emits powerful streams of cold air that instantly restrict the enemy's movements. Now she can barely control her skill, but if she is distracted for even a second, she can inflict heavy injuries on her opponent. He easily got through her skill and went on the attack. He saw her as an enemy. It was very scary, and she did not want to die. At that moment, she thought about what she could do. The protagonist thought about what she meant when she said that she was scared. It was because she separated him from Kai. The girl explained that if she lost control, she could release Kato's power from Kami. That was why she did not attack. The protagonist was surprised and thought she took such a risk to help him. It was his fault. It was just a misunderstanding. He walked up to her, took out a handkerchief and wiped away her tears. He thought, he really screwed up this time. If there was anything he could do, he would do it. He said words of gratitude and added that if she needed help in the future, she could ask. He stood up, turned around and continued. He would do everything in his power, absolutely everything. Kamui looked at him and thought, why was this guy so nice to her? After thinking for a while, she wondered if she should ask for a favor in that case. The protagonist asked if she was sure. Then he remembered his sister's words. If he made the girl cry, then he should apologize and do everything in his power, and then fulfill all her wishes. The protagonist thought, if Kamui herself asked, then everything should be fine. He walked up to Kamui and noticed that he agreed. As he was seeing her off, he thought that if he wasn't careful, he might freeze to death from her Ice God's Blessing attack. Could it be that her expressionlessness was because she was suppressing her emotions and keeping them under control? Being an S rank was incredibly difficult, but to think that even Kamui was afraid of Kai, but she was a girl after all. He suddenly remarked to Kamui that he lived in the dorm, they would see each other later. The girl smiled and said goodbye to him. The protagonist remembered his sister's words. He shouldn't let a girl go alone. He should see her to the very end, but he couldn't call out to Kamui. After a while he was eating, he thought about what he should have done then. What the correct answer was unknown. To begin with, he had never seriously communicated with girls, his sister did not count. Suddenly, someone called out to him. It was Fuji. He asked if he could sit next to him and eat. The protagonist was surprised at how much food he had. He wondered how all of it fit in his body. Looking at Fuji, the protagonist noted that he looked like a cute puppy that he wanted to protect. Suddenly, he looked at him and exclaimed, did he really just think that he was a cute little animal? It was rude to him, but he asked how he was doing. He looked thoughtful. Maybe something happened? The protagonist explained that he just had trouble understanding girls. They were walking home together. When they reached the dorm, he left her alone, but his sister always told him that he should not let a girl go alone. He should see her to the very end. Fuji laughed in response. The protagonist wondered if he said anything funny. Fuji explained that his sister's words made sense, but what did she think about it? In the end, it all depends on the girl herself, whether she wants to be escorted or not. And what does he think about it? The protagonist understood everything and, clutching his head, thought, Kamui would definitely not want someone like him around. There could be a misunderstanding. Fuji noted that it would be better to ask if she wants him to escort her. The protagonist noted that his sister always said the same thing. Fuji said that a woman's heart is a complicated thing. Perhaps he and his sister would get along well. After some time, the protagonist and Kamui came to a private training hall. The protagonist asked if it was time to start. Kamui exclaimed in agreement. She began to use her magic, and the protagonist thought, he won't freeze. Kamui had a strange reaction, and the protagonist asked what was wrong with her. She explained that she wanted to overcome her weakness. She wants to master the ice god's blessing. After that, she asked him to look at her more. The protagonist thought he understood that was the meaning of her request. Because of Kai's gaze, she was unable to maintain her control over the ice god's blessing. Then, he exclaimed that he understood. He would do his best. Kamui thanked him, and the protagonist began to stare. He thought this is all he can do, but for some reason, he wants to help her overcome her difficulties. When Kamui was about to use her attack, she was scared by the protagonist's gaze and collapsed on the floor. Tears appeared in her eyes again. She turned to him. Did he really become even stronger since yesterday? MC said that he did not think so. He thought, even though he received many skills yesterday, his level did not increase, so he should not have become stronger. Kamui, wiping away her tears, apologized for crying again. The protagonist waved his hands. No need to apologize, it was because of him that she was acting like this. Kamui blushed and looked at the protagonist, wondering why he was being so nice to her. The protagonist was taken aback and explained that he made her cry, so he should take responsibility. His little sister would definitely be mad at him if she found out. Kamui asked with a smile if he had a little sister. The protagonist said that he did. He had the best, sweetest, and most caring little sister. He thought that now, without the burden of controlling her abilities, Kamui had become much more emotional. She laughed and cried so much. The way she confronted her trauma was admirable, and in a way, he envied her. He looked at the walls and ceiling and asked the girl what they were going to do with all this ice now. Suddenly, a voice informed the protagonist that he had obtained the skill ice melting due to its high difficulty. The protagonist noted that the new skill was very good, but suddenly his voice wavered. Kamui asked if something was wrong. MC noted that he was just wondering if he could melt it with his powers. Kamui explained that the ice god's blessing was not ordinary ice, so she did not think it could be melted that easily. And although she had received personal permission to use this gym, it seemed that no one else could use it except her. The protagonist thought that this was an abuse of the student council's authority. The training gym was no longer usable. He did not want other students to hate Kamui because of this. But could he do it? Suddenly, a voice indicated that the skill ice melting had evolved into absolute ice disintegration. The protagonist was immediately glad that the skill had evolved. Now he was sure that he would succeed. He used absolute ice disintegration, and a second later asked if it had already melted or completely disappeared. He turned to Kamui and noted that they would definitely not have any problems now, so it was time for them to go home. The girl looked at the hall and noted to herself, this simply could not be. How could he? When they went home, passersby were talking to each other. Wasn't that the Ice Princess? This is incredible. Are these two really on the same team? One can only envy this. At this point, the protagonist apologized to her. They came to the dorm, and Kamui had already said goodbye to the protagonist, but he called out to her. A little worried, offered to walk her home, but if she didn't like it, she could refuse. Kamui clarified whether he was serious. Wouldn't he be bored walking with her? The protagonist explained that if the injury were to reoccur, strange misunderstandings might arise, and he wanted to take responsibility until the end. The girl was very surprised and very nervous. She lost control of herself again, and everything around her became cold. But the protagonist decided everything in an instant. Thanks to the skill, he would be able to remove the ice at the right time. Kamui blushed and thanked him. They looked at each other excitedly and went on. One day, the protagonist thought, several days have passed since they started training together, and every day he makes Kamui cry. She says that she does not worry about it, but is it possible for a man? One such day after training, the protagonist said, I wonder what his sister would say about this. He walks her home again, as usual. The protagonist extended his hand, and Kamui extended her hand in response. After that, the protagonist walked her to the house where she lived with her family. When they arrived, Kamui's mother came out and remarked that it was nice to meet her. Her name was Irina. The protagonist became nervous and also said that he was pleased to meet her. He introduced himself by name and froze. Kamui's mother remarked that she had heard about him from her daughter. At that moment, the protagonist became scared and thought that her mother would be indignant and threaten him for making her daughter cry every day. But Irina invited him to come inside the house. The servant poured him tea and said that the young lady would be here soon. He could have some tea and take a walk in the garden for now. The protagonist thanked her deeply and thought that he had never been to such places. He was a little nervous. After that, he went out into the garden and noticed someone. He thought, who could it be? Coming closer, he wished him a good day. The old man turned around and asked if he had noticed him. The protagonist did not quite understand and said, of course. The voice said that the protagonist had obtained the skill of stealth detection due to the high difficulty. Standing next to the old man, the protagonist thought, he is looking at him so intently. And the old man thought that he is interesting. MC thought, maybe he is too old. But the old man then hit him and exclaimed that he is not old. After the hit, the protagonist wondered in confusion how he read his mind. The voice from outside again noted that the protagonist had obtained the skill of mind-reading resistance due to external danger. The old man thought, this is really amazing. Turning around, he addressed the protagonist by name and noted that he has a keen eye. At that moment, Kamui came out in a robe. She turned to the protagonist and asked if she looked good. MC excitedly exclaimed that it suited her very well. The girl smiled and he thought, this destructive power is just crazy. After that, they both sat down at the table. The protagonist thought, he was so nervous that his throat was dry. Why did she sit next to him? Usually he sits opposite others. She is very close at the moment. If this continues, he will have to go to the bathroom. After that, a voice informed the protagonist that he received the skill Decompose Waste due to the difficulty. He thought that now he can relax. Kamui's mother came and apologized for the wait. The protagonist remarked that the tea was delicious. Irina suggested that they start by opening a certain chest. The protagonist was confused, thinking what they were going to do with it. Irina explained that it was an exclusive credit card of the Kamui family. The protagonist can spend as much as he wants. The protagonist was very surprised by this and thought, is it really as much as he wants? If he uses it, he can help his family. Kamui turned to her mother. This was not part of the deal. Irina apologized to the protagonist and he thought, but why did all he did was look at her daughter? While they were arguing, tears of joy appeared in the mother's eyes. She said that it was just fun to argue with her daughter. How many years had passed since the last time? The protagonist thought about it and wondered if it had really been years. He turned to the girl and asked if she really behaved the same way at home as she did at school. Kamui replied that she did. The protagonist thought that this was impossible. That is, every time she trained until she cried, she just wanted to go home and have a heart-to-heart talk with her family. He hadn't thought about it at all. Suddenly, the mother bowed and turned to the protagonist, asking him to give them the opportunity to always enjoy such moments. The protagonist thought about it and thought that thanks to his skill, he could easily stop the influence of the ice god's blessing, so they wanted to buy the time he spent with Kamui. The protagonist listened and apologized, but he could not accept this offer. He explained that his friendship with Kamui was more important. He did not want to exchange it for money. He would continue to help her with her training. He would do everything he could. That was why he would not accept the offer. He wanted to repay her for her trust. The girl, hearing this, looked very surprised. Kamui's mother asked if he really agreed to be with her daughter from now on. The protagonist noted that this was true, at least as long as she agreed. The mother turned to her daughter and asked what she thought about this, since the protagonist had already spoken out. Kamui, clenching her fists, quietly noted that he had said this out of the blue. She jumped up and ran away. Her mother tried to stop her, noting that this was also very important to Kamui's family. The protagonist ran after her, calling out to her. He thought, this is very bad. If she continues, the estate may be frozen. A voice informed the protagonist that he had received the water seal skill. Because of the difficulty, he thought maybe it would be better to let her run away. She needed to be alone. Kamui ran into the hall and started swinging her sword. The voice said that the protagonist also received the skill of stealth, and then this skill evolved into absolute shadow. When Kamui fell down tired, the protagonist approached her, calling out to her. She was very scared. The protagonist apologized and explained that he followed her because he was worried. The girl lowered her gaze and turned to the protagonist, asking why her. After all, she can't even talk to people normally because of her skill, not to communicate, not even to touch someone. The protagonist answered. At first he made her cry. Because of him, he thought that he should take responsibility for this. But watching her work hard every single day seemed so incredible to him. Then he realized that he just wanted to be near her. He took out a handkerchief and wiped the girl's tears. She said that she couldn't touch anyone for a long time, but now she was happy. She took the protagonist's hand and hugged him, thanking him. At that moment, the grandfather came in and noted that it was very hot in here. The protagonist and Kamui were scared and exclaimed about his presence. The old man noted that Kamui found a nice guy. He asked the protagonist how he was able to overcome the cold. The protagonist explained that it was all thanks to the skill. The old man noted that he was able to resist his intimidation. The protagonist asked in surprise, did he really know something about this? The grandfather explained that he knew, but he would not just say it. MC loudly asked what he should do then. The grandfather said that he needed to marry his granddaughter. At that moment, Kamui kicked the grandfather, and he flew away. She turned to the protagonist and asked him to pretend that he did not hear what he said. The voice told the protagonist that he had acquired the skill, Enhanced Defense, due to fear. When they returned home, they were met by a man. He addressed them and introduced himself. His name was Akira. He was Kamui's father. The protagonist noted that he was pleased to meet him and also introduced himself. The girl was happy to see her father back. The father looked at his daughter and noted that his mother had already told him everything, but he still couldn't believe it. He turned to the protagonist and noted that he was immensely grateful to him. MC said that there was nothing to thank him for and thought that he had been dreaming of a scene like this for a long time. After some time, the protagonist thanked him for dinner and went home. At the threshold, Kamui approached the protagonist and asked him to call her by name. The protagonist thought that he was not ready to call her by name yet. The girl continued that he could always call her and wished him to be more careful on the way home. The protagonist responded by telling her to be careful with the skill as well. They said goodbye, and the protagonist left. The mother approached her daughter and asked if he would come back again. Kamui replied that he would most likely. Her mother remarked that he was a good guy. Kamui's family would support her in any way they could. She was their daughter after all. She was happy to see her smile again after so many years, but when he was not around, she still felt sad. Kamui remarked that she would be returning to her room now. She said good night and left. After a while, MC remarked to himself, before Dungeon 117, there were dungeons all over the world. There were a lot of E ranks, so they were simply numbered. There were only 7 B rank dungeons, and only 2 A rank dungeons. He could lose to Kamui, he also had skills, and he should earn a lot. When the protagonist approached the dungeon, the guard asked for a license. The protagonist showed his hand, and the guard was surprised. Is it really level 0? The protagonist noted that everything was fine. The guard continued, he understands that he is probably a diligent person, but with such a level, he cannot let him in alone. He sees a 0 for the first time. The protagonist thought, in this case, he will have to sneak in stealthily. He used his skill Absolute Stealth and made sure that the guard did not see him. When he got there, he thought that he really was invisible to others, but suddenly he heard that they were trying to stop him. Well, as it turned out, they did not tell him. It turned out that Kai wanted to go into this dungeon too. He showed the guard his hand and he let him in. Kai got angry. He is constantly stopped at every dungeon, the same thing. Entering the dungeon, a voice told the protagonist that the skill information about the dungeon was used. The name is the Troll Prison. The protagonist thought, wasn't this place called Lucifer's Fall? Everything looked different here. No castles. Wasn't this the same dungeon he'd entered before? Suddenly, he heard someone fighting. A group of people were fighting slime-like creatures. They won and shook hands. The protagonist approached the creatures the people were fighting, and a voice announced that the monster analysis skill had been activated by inspiration. Thanks to the skill, the protagonist learned that it was a call. This monster's weakness was fire, and its rare drop was a tiny magic stone. The protagonist noted to himself that this monster was quite pleasant to the touch, but after that, the monster burst, and liquid got on the protagonist. He noticed that he had squeezed it too hard. The voice noted that, based on the experience gained, he had obtained the tenderness skill. The protagonist noted that thanks to this skill, he could now squeeze as much as he wanted. He had already squeezed a dozen of them, but the magic stone had not fallen out, and he had hoped that at least one would. Suddenly, those people noticed that this monster seemed to be flying. Since the protagonist was still in stealth, another of the company noted that maybe it was rare. They needed to kill it. They rushed at it, but they could not hit it because the protagonist was wagging the monster. After that, he ran away from there with it. He thought they wanted to kill his dear Co. Suddenly, the protagonist ran to some portal and disappeared in an instant. At that moment, he found himself in a strange cave and saw Kai. He exclaimed in bewilderment, where did he end up? He saw that Kai was fighting a huge monster. It seemed to be the boss of the floor. A voice told the protagonist that the monster analysis skill had been activated. In front of him is a troll. The weakness of this monster is fire. A rare drop is a small magic crystal. At this moment, Kai was fiercely fighting the troll, but besides him, the protagonist saw another group that was also fighting the monster. One of this group took advantage of the moment and knocked down the troll. The protagonist saw this and admired the work of the group, but suddenly Kai was attacked again. He noticed why there was another troll here. He did not have time to react, and the monster hit Kai's body with a club. After the fall, he noticed that the boss must be alone, because there is only one group here. Is there really someone else here? Let him stop sitting around doing nothing. When the troll began a new attack on Kai, another guy from the group ran up and noted that he would cover him. Kai thanked him and also entered the fight. In a matter of moments, they defeated the monster. After defeating him, the guy from the group noted, "Good hit, Kai," and he thanked them for their help. What barbarians they were! A man from the group asked where the third troll came from. His comrade replied that there is no such thing as more bosses than groups. This is the first time they have heard of such a thing. The protagonist overheard the conversation and stood nervously to the side. The guy from the group noted that they still need to collect materials. Kai noted that he will rest a little and go home. The guy from the group noted that sometimes it is better not to overexert yourself once again. Nothing is worth giving your life for it. In such places, it is hard to be alone, although studying alone is always more effective. The girl from the group noticed, but if he dies, he will not come back to life. They are not in the game. The guy from the group said that in this case you need to be prepared for this. The protagonist thought if one troll appears for each group, the third appeared because he was the third. So, the third troll was his opponent. It turns out that he screwed up, but suddenly a troll appeared behind the protagonist. MC thought, now he will fight the troll who was reborn himself. It seems that he does not see him, then he can suddenly attack. But stealth will disappear after the attack. The surprise attack has more damage and speed. After he received martial arts, he can see the weak points of his opponent. The adventurer he saw earlier also aimed at the back of the head. This is definitely a weak point. So, it's his time to take down the troll. The protagonist jumped up and swung his leg, hitting the most vulnerable spot of the monster. After that, stealth was cancelled, until the next use, 60 seconds. The protagonist wondered if it was a strong blow. He saw that the troll did not even move. Is there really no use with its current attack power? He cannot damage him, so what to do now? Wait for the stealth recharge, or what? Maybe it is better to try to hit again? He has increased defense. He can easily withstand one blow. Suddenly, a girl called out to the protagonist and asked if he was from the Seishin school. She greeted him and asked if he had really defeated this monster on his own. The protagonist tried to stop her because he was sure that the troll was still alive. The girl explained that he had already defeated it. She poked it with her finger, and the monster fell. The protagonist was surprised. Did he really die? The girl laughed. Did he really think that monsters pretend to be dead? If he doesn't move, then he's already dead. That's a fact. She crouched down and poked his leg, showing that he was definitely ready. She also noted that the protagonist should not worry, because she was wearing shorts under her dress. She stood up and noticed that her boss seemed to have approached. She suggested that the protagonist look and see her secret, let him enjoy watching the fight. The girl rushed to attack, and the protagonist noticed that she was very fast. The girl dodged the attack and attacked the monster herself. The protagonist was surprised. Was it really a magic weapon? The troll could not withstand the attack and eventually flew away. The protagonist disappeared and thought it would be better for him to run away. He used absolute stealth and hoped that she did not remember his face, and they would not meet again. But the girl found him and asked him to show himself, otherwise she would cry. The protagonist realized that he had no choice, and he appeared. The girl asked how he did it. She could not believe that he could hide everything at all, even she could not sense him. The protagonist asked how she found him then. The girl explained that she had a special ability, but most likely she was just lucky. She asked, perhaps he is one of those who does not communicate with people and does not have friends, right? She noticed that he was surprisingly courageous. Usually people start to hate her after something like that. She asked why he hid. The protagonist replied that he didn't want to answer. The girl asked if it would be bad if someone found out about his ability. The protagonist asked suspiciously if she wanted something from him. The girl explained that she wanted him to join her in a group. The protagonist was surprised. What was going on in her head? Although this was probably the best option, otherwise his secret could be revealed. The protagonist agreed, and the girl was very happy. After that, while spreading the blanket, she suggested waiting for the monster to appear again. The protagonist asked himself in amazement, where was she getting all this stuff from? Did she really have a skill like separate storage space that others used? The girl sat down and noted that they hadn't even gotten to know each other well yet. She said that her name was Shino, he should only call her that and nothing else. MC also introduced himself, although he was nervous because of her behavior. Shino asked, is he a first year, right? He probably isn't from the second group. The protagonist answered, he is from the third group. Shino sighed, it's a pity that she is from the neighboring class. The protagonist noted, since they were seeing each other for the first time, it makes sense that they are not in the same class. Shino added, she heard that there is an S-rank girl in the third group, right? The protagonist answered that it is and thought, Kamui is very famous. Shino noted that he has an amazing opponent next to him. At that moment, a troll appeared. Shino said that she would go head-on and let him go around from behind. The protagonist realized this is his first battle in the group. Shino rushed to attack, but at that moment the protagonist was already ready to attack the monster from behind. Shino was surprised, he is very fast. MC struck, and the troll immediately fell to the ground. Shino was stunned. He is amazing. The protagonist himself was shocked. Was the monster already dead? He realized the weak points were more effective than he thought. He looked at the body and asked what they would do with all these materials. Shino said that he could take everything for himself. The protagonist was happy and used monster cutting. He noted that she should not complain later. Shino Mio looked and suggested to continue the hunt. The protagonist noted to himself he had collected some good materials. Shino asked, is it time to go back? The protagonist immediately disappeared and explained, he just can't let anyone else see him. Shino said, let him give her his hand then. She wants them to be alone until the very end. What if he runs away, right? She added that if he runs away, she will break into the third group. The protagonist gave her his hand and they went on. When they left, Shino asked him to show himself. The protagonist cancelled perfect stealth and appeared. Shino praised him for not running away. The protagonist laughed in response and bowed, calling her Milady. Shino wondered where he learned such manners. Who is he? MC explained that he just has a younger sister. He thought that Shino had the same smile as his sister. She reminded him too much of her. Shino noted that he really is amazing. He is great at hiding. The protagonist scratched his head. That is the only reason he can go into the dungeons. Shino noted that he is strong. They would have let him in anyway. The protagonist said that he is ordinary and not strong at all. Shino looked at him mysteriously and said that she heard him. She asked if he was going there tomorrow too. The protagonist said that he was going to E90. Shino exclaimed that they will meet there then. They are in a group with him, right? Shino, leaving, added that he should not be late. MC smiled and thought, this is a one-time action, but nothing can be done. After some time already at the dorm table, Fuji asked if he was having problems with the girl again. The protagonist asked the question, is he really that predictable? Let Fuji tell him what dungeon he was in. He said he was in D86. The protagonist noted that this was amazing. Fuji laughed, nothing special. He just had strong comrades. MC said, but even so, he was still on their level. This is very cool. The protagonist noted that he heard that many explorers die in such places. He will also try not to be a burden to anyone. Fuji turned to the protagonist and asked if he knew that there are two types of explorers. He explained that those who explore old floors and those who strive to explore new floors. By exploring old floors, you can prepare in advance and reduce the risks. And the second ones are eager to enter unknown lands, so they often come face to face with death. The protagonist asked, if it is dangerous, is it necessary to take such risks? Fuji explained, many people think so, but there are huge advantages. At that moment, an airship appeared in the sky, which reported the ranking of explorers. Fuji continued, it is quite easy to rise in the ranking if you defeat previously unknown bosses and go through difficult dungeons. If you get into the top 10, you can earn exclusive treatment, only the best are there. And that's not all. Such people receive special rewards. Fuji said that he will do everything possible for this reward. Now the unknown is in first place. No one can surpass him, and he has an S rank. The next day, the protagonist wondered, what kind of person is in first place in the ranking? And what does Fuji know about special rewards? Now in first place is an unknown. No one can surpass him, and he has an S rank. The next day, the protagonist wondered what kind of person is in first place in the ranking, and what does Fuji know about special rewards, and why does he even need this ranking? Suddenly, the protagonist remembered the promise. He must go to the meeting, but he is incredibly late. What will Shino say if he is late? Thanks to the extreme acceleration he made it. This is the dungeon Jigin prison. The protagonist turned to Shino and asked if she had waited long. She was very scared, but he suggested that she start going through the dungeon already. Shino sensed the monster and showed him where to go. The protagonist wondered if she could really study the environment too. On the way, they met a weak monster called Kuna. Shino suggested repeating yesterday's action. In a few moments, they dealt with the monster. Shino noted that the protagonist should take all the materials for himself today too. The protagonist baffled her and was very surprised to himself that Shino had killed the monster so easily. She seemed to be a strong researcher. After the attacks, the protagonist noted that he was used to fighting Kuna. Shino asked him to take a look. There was an entrance to the boss room. They quickly found themselves inside. Shino explained that E90 was special. The entrance to the local boss is constantly moving. Suddenly, a huge monster appeared in front of them. This is a weak monster, GJ. He is weak to light magic, and you can get a potion from him. When the monster began to attack, the protagonist thought, the manual said that if there are two of them, you need to split up. Attack from the left and the right. Shino noted that you need to carefully watch his attacks, because he breathes fire. The protagonist and Shino worked together, and after several attacks, they still managed to kill the huge monster. Shino noted that they did it. The protagonist was surprised. Is this really all? Shino noted that she did not think that they would defeat him so quickly. The protagonist said with a smile that it was all thanks to her. When they left the room, the protagonist was convinced that the entrance to the boss's room had really disappeared. Shino added that it was impossible to predict where he would appear. The protagonist was upset that they were unlucky enough to get a potion from this monster. Shino turned to the protagonist and noted that she was very hungry. MC suggested going into town and getting something to eat. They went, and Shino pressed herself against the protagonist. He noted that if she was that close, it would be awkward. Shino replied that if he became invisible again, it would be awkward for her. She pressed herself even closer and apologized in advance. As they walked through the city, the protagonist thought, what's wrong with her? Just a moment ago, she was all glowing, and in the city, she suddenly became so gloomy. Maybe she was afraid of something? MC remembered the first time his sister found herself in a shopping mall. She felt dizzy because of the crowds. Maybe Shino was the same way? He turned to her. Did she feel better? He understands, everyone has their own scars. A strong person can actually be weak. Shino apologized again, and the protagonist thought, they left the main street, she should feel at least a little better. But why is it so hard for her? She is irritated by sounds, she has a headache. The protagonist took her head and asked, how does she cope with it? Shino showed that she usually wears headphones. The protagonist exclaimed, why didn't she put them on then? Shino explained that she was walking with him, not alone. The protagonist silently put the headphones on her and Shino burst into tears. He understood that she needed these headphones to distract herself from the surrounding sounds. She might not even hear his voice now, but he does not want her to suffer. She said that this would happen, but she still went with him. He wants to do something, but right now there is a huge wall between them. In order to help, the protagonist sincerely asked to give him strength. The voice said that the skill telepathy was acquired. The protagonist addressed her using telepathy and conveyed to her that such a sad look does not suit her. Shino heard him and was surprised. She immediately threw herself into the protagonist's arms and thanked him with tears in her eyes. He really helped her. At that moment, a certain man in a cap turned to the second one. Could they really still not find the merchant of magic stones? The second one answered, his people have been watching the market for several days, but they can't find the contact. Opening the case, he noted he didn't think he would be able to find such a thing. But the man in the cap threatened him not to open the case. The second one noted, let him not worry. This is the safest place in the country. The man in the cap asked a question, what are they going to do with this magic stone? The second one answered that at the moment it could be sold to Kagura or Kamui. The man in the cap exclaimed, who leaked the information? These two clans are on everyone's lips again. What kind of fools are revealing the clan's secrets? Suddenly, one girl approached this marshal. She asks for forgiveness, but has he forgotten how her Kamui clan helped him? He should have given them all the information at once. The young man also said that his Kagura clan had helped them more than once. This girl, Akari, exclaimed that their help was more useful. The young man exclaimed, how dare they take what rightfully belongs to them? These two loudly asked the marshal to give one of them this magic stone. Akari noticed, they are much more important. The young man clearly noted, let it go to his sister Shino. If she covers her ears, there will be no problems. The girl Akari also noticed, her sister Hinata Kamui can't even leave the house. She must at least go to the estate. For this, she will need a magic stone. After that, each of these two contenders continued their dispute. They even decided to solve everything with a duel, but the marshal stopped them with a shout. He hasn't decided anything yet. Besides, if they fight, one of them might get seriously hurt or even die. If one of them dies, the stone will come to the bottom of the sea. Let them wait at least a little. If they manage to find a merchant, then maybe they will be able to get the second stone. And the marshal will make it so that each clan gets a stone.